Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everybody. Thank you very much for joining. Today, I've got a very interesting gentleman who I've known for about 30 years, back into my Shangri La days, and even probably earlier than that, back in the late 80s, early 90s. Keith Yates. And Keith has his own company based in Bangkok called Yates and Partners. And we've done some work together, probably most recently at Hotel Icon in Hong Kong. And before we left, we kind of reinvented the whole customer journey, which was a fascinating project. And that was while he was doing some work with Cathay Pacific. So, Keith, it's really amazing to have you on the podcast, and I'm really grateful for your time. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Yates and Partners and what you're up to now?
Well, thank you, Richard, and I appreciate enormously the opportunity to get together and talk talk the talk of our industry. Yates and Partners, we're quite simple. We do two things. The first is transformation of the guest experience. Now, when we say transformation of the guest experience, what that is a focus on elevation of the hospitality. So the hospitality infrastructure of, let's say, the airline or the hotel can be pretty good, but there is always an opportunity to elevate that hospitality, to bring it to a new level. And obviously, the ambition is to be recognized, to go from a 3-star to a 5-star, because that has enormous revenue implications. So the interest in transformation of the guest experience is very high.
Right.
Be it hotel, be it airline, everybody wants to go up a level. They want to move from number 32 in the world to number 5, which is one airline project we've just finished. And that has enormous revenue implications for the airline. Or they want to move from a good 3-star hotel to a great 5-star. And to do that, you really have to transform the whole guest experience, and you have to elevate hospitality. But you also have to embrace the emotional opportunity. There is always an emotion which can drive the guest experience forward, and we have to find that emotion. And
Right.
we need to embrace it, and we need to get everyone, be it in the airline, be it in the hotel, everyone has to embrace that emotion and understand how that emotion drives the guest experience. And that's the fun part.
Right.
Because that involves changing mindset. That
Right.
means you've got to engage with everyone from CEO all the way down and help the organization build a new mindset. We call it the hospitality mindset, but
Right.
essentially it's about embracing new emotion. So that's our core business, and we love
Okay.
doing that, and we have been doing that for 30 years all around the world. And we also have a second stream, which is very related. We like to design airport lounges.
Right.
So if you want a 5-star airport lounge, we want to design it and we want to operate it. So we
Right.
have a number of projects throughout the world where we are creating from zero a whole new experience of lounge. And we also have projects around the world where we're taking, for instance, a stately home in Italy and transforming that stately home to a wonderful place for you to come and spend some time. And we love doing that. And that's it. That's all we do.
That's brilliant. And I remember with the project we worked on, we were really more looking at the service design side of
Yes.
it, and breaking down the customer journey and then creating touch points within that journey. And it was very effective. And even, it's been about 4 years since I left that hotel, and it's still very highly regarded, and the service standards are still there. So I think once the core DNA of what you've just spoken about is embedded, and they're doing the training, then that guest experience and that hospitality can endure. And I'm just curious because with all this sort of technology going on, and there are some major shifts in terms of there's a lot of talk and about AI and about digital and how that kind of will define the industry over the next, say, 5 years. I mean, presumably, when you're designing a lounge or you're designing a service, whether it be on the aircraft itself or in a hotel, you're kind of looking, you're projecting out based on what's likely to be happening with regard to AI and digital. How do you see any major shifts changing, or do you think things will stay largely as they are?
Um, we are going through a major shift right now. I can't name the airports, but there are two airports which have given approval to use AI camera driven software.
Right.
And the aim is to construct a corridor that the guest walks through and they do not have to take out their passport or credit card. They
Right.
have nothing to do, but the AI camera is interpreting the face and providing all the information which normally you would have to give to the check-in agent or the reception. All of that is done behind the scenes while you walk. And it's only because of AI's potency that we can do that. So we can provide a contactless experience from curb right to the aircraft door if we desire. And there are two, we call them contactless corridors, approved already. Now, in terms of lounge, how we want to use that in terms of lounge, we don't like people having to come to the reception of a lounge and having to stand there and tell the reception who they are or show their boarding pass. And so we will be using the AI-driven camera system to know who is coming up the stairs right now. And we will I'll have, the host will be standing there with an iPad, and they'll just say, "Good evening, Richard. So nice of you to join our lounge," and walk you in. And it's seamless. You won't have to do anything. And so I think using this sort of technology, we can improve hospitality, we can improve service dramatically, because we want to take away all those moments where you have to stop and do something. That's just silly. And so we're looking at the hotel reception now and thinking through why don't we have the AI-driven camera system to recognize you as you get out of your taxi and you walk into the lobby, and the host in the lobby will just say, "Good evening, Mr. Hatter. Your suite is ready. Would you like to go straight to your suite or join us in the guest lounge for a champagne?" And there'll be no need for you to fill in any forms or sign anything. It's all been done by the AI package. That's where we're going, and I love it because
that's amazing.
It is amazing.
So there is this. I always think that airlines tend to be the pioneers of these initiatives, and then hotels sort of catch up later on. And
that's
I
very
think
true.
that, and why do you think aviation is the one creating these truly memorable kind of initiatives, if you like?
I think it's more competitive than the hotel sector. And the higher up you are in terms of the ratings, let's say you're a 5-star airline versus a 4-star, the better price you can charge. So you can't get up in the ratings unless you're delivering a very superior experience that people feel is memorable and they're prepared to pay for. Come back. That's the thing that you need to factor in. But the airline system is not about we're going to charge you more because we're 5-star. No, we can charge you a little more because you want this experience. You want to come back. And all the research we have says that if you can deliver a memorable experience, a very personal experience, people are prepared to pay a little more to receive that again
Right.
and again. And I think you know the brands that have done that really well in
Sure.
the
Sure.
airline sector.
Sure.
There are five I can think of who do it
Yeah.
brilliantly. Yeah. So
So
airlines work much
what makes
harder.
those? Yeah, just a quick jump in there, Keith, because that's a really interesting point. I was just wondering, with hotels, I mean, a hotel can kind of call itself anything it wants. It can say I'm 5 star, 4 star, whatever. But with an airline, there seems to be, in terms of the kind of global rankings or whatever, it seems to be a lot more sort of structured and globally accepted that this airline is the number one airline. I mean, where do you think that is that something that is a governance thing, or is that just
I think
PR, or how does it work?
it's a credibility thing. The
Okay.
two major systems are Skytrax and the World Class. Uh, Now, the Apex World Class requires you to take a very intense audit over multiple sectors, all classes, and there are some 45 dimensions which are assessed in the audit. And
Okay.
your ability to get into the world class is only 10 airlines. Your ability to get into that depends on your audit score
I see.
and your NPS customer rating. So you have to share all of your NPS ratings of the last
Right.
year. They are triangulated against the audit results, and
Hmm.
so it's transparent. Everybody can see the data. Everybody knows how you got there, and I think that's the important thing. And the same with Skytrax. Skytrax do a pretty good audit, and they have a very thorough look at every airline before they say yes, we can award you
Hmm.
5 star, or you're number one or number two. So
Right.
the rating systems make it possible for airlines to kind of make these claims, and they
Hmm.
struggle. They struggle to get the right level. They
Yeah.
put more money into getting up there than I'm prepared to
Hmm.
share with you.
Hmm.
But it's a really important factor for an airline.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I think also the often the kind of Achilles heel, if you like, with hotel brands is that there's this inconsistency. You could
Yeah,
have a great lounge in Shenzhen, and then you go to Paris or you go to London, and they're all sort of different levels. I guess where in an era where efficiency and cost pressures are so intense, I just wondered how you kind of protect that, so you don't get some manager of the BA lounge at Heathrow saying, "Oh, we need to cut back on our costs. Let's get rid of the this brand and change it to that brand." Is it very structured, and is it very specific as to what they put out on these offerings, or is there a little bit of flexibility?
I think there's a huge differentiation in the lounge environment between the
Mm,
airlines that try to do it as cost effectively as they possibly can, and those that try to do it and make it part of their brand. And so what we see is quite an interesting division. So I was in a European Airlines headquarter airport in their new lounge, and I couldn't see. There was one of their staff at reception, but there were none of their staff on the floor, and it was a big lounge. Um, the only people I saw on the floor were the kind ladies clearing dirty plates. Um, there was nothing of the brand on the floor at all, and the whole experience was a buffet. Now, that's quite common in Europe, and the European airlines seem to think that's okay. Um, there are exceptions, but if you take the airlines that regard themselves to be 5 star or in the top 10 world class, they tend to look at the lounge as part of our brand experience, and they put a lot more thought. For instance, we will not make a lounge, we will not design a lounge for anyone that says, I need a buffet. We will say, well, we don't do that. If you want buffet, lots of people will do that for you. Here, go and talk to them. We regard the food and beverage experience as quite fundamental to the enjoyment of the lounge. And if you ask people to stand in a queue and spoon things out of cold dishes, you have a disregard for the guest satisfaction, your guest satisfaction. And we believe that the cuisine should be fresh. It should be à la minute. It shouldn't be stored in shaving dishes. And there should be creative ways of delivering that, many different
Mm.
ways. So there is this division in thinking between the airlines that want to make the lounge part of their brand and those that really see it as a cost center. And
Interesting.
if
Yeah.
you see it as a cost center, you do some pretty interesting things. You just
Mm.
don't use people.
Yeah.
But I think there are Asia has and the Middle East has good lounges, and um, this is not one of my lounges, but I think that Cathay, the Pier Lounge, is a good example of a well-designed,
Mm.
very comfortable, um, quality lounge experience, and I think that's a benchmark for
Yeah.
those that want to go towards something that speaks well of the brand versus something that is very fundamental. But
Yeah.
I mean, there are many examples of Beyond Cathay. I just picked that up because it's an easy one,
Of
and
course. Yeah.
I think they deserve some credit for the thinking
Mm.
behind the pier.
Yeah.
And of course, Qatar have invested massively in three amazing lounges in Doha,
Mm.
and Emirates. So the investment it has to be looked as a brand investment. You can't look at it as a
Yeah.
cost issue. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, once you look at the sort of advisory side of what you're doing, and like you just explained, that was quite interesting. 'Cause, we don't do buffets. How do you get pushback sometimes
Yeah.
where they're trying to? Because I think that a lot of common mistakes that organizations make when they're trying to elevate service standards is that they think that it's all geared around design, some sort of interior design feature, rather than the sort of element of human nature, hospitality, right? So, I mean, these two things have to be embedded together. How do you deal with that kind of pushback sometimes, or get them to change their paradigm thinking?
Well, first of all, the lounges which have been the most troublesome for airlines are those which have been designed by designers who didn't start with the food and beverage experience. They
Okay.
just did nice walls, nice carpets, nice everything else, and then handed the lounge to the airline. And the airline said, "Well, where's the food and beverage experience?" And the designer would say, "Oh, nothing to do with us." Um, and that's the fundamental error, because then the airline has a real problem. They now have to look at the space that's been designed for them and say, how are we going to fit in some decent food and beverage experiences? And that is kind of back to front. So when you think of designing a lounge, you have to start with defining the guest experience. What is the guest experience we want to deliver? And map out the guest experience. And then
Yeah.
from the guest experience, then start to do the lounge design. And when you do that,
Mm.
you'll realize it's not about the walls and the carpet. By the way, normally it's wood and stone, not carpet.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's about creating a different bar experience, a very
Right.
different bar experience, creating a different dining experience. And you start with those things, and then you start to look at the right. We're working on something which is quite exciting at the moment, and that's a private dining concept inside a lounge with a single chef running the private dining,
Mm.
identified in the lounge, serving a very small number of guests, but also quite an exciting culinary concept. And you would never
Mm.
find it in a lounge, something that you would probably fly to Paris for. But we want the high-end frequent flyers to say, I want that experience. I want
Right.
something like I had in Paris, blah, blah, blah. They're
Yeah.
going to get it in this private dining. So you start by looking at what are the guest experiences you want to appeal to, manage, and you work backwards from there, not forwards from
Mm.
how the pretty the walls are and whether we'll have marble in the bathroom.
That's very interesting, because I think even in the world of luxury and luxury retail, and the way they engage with the customer, and they have these special VIP rooms. I'm just wondering, when you're thinking about an airline, I mean, the fact that, and I remember you told me this years ago, that that every plane is basically pretty much designed the same. I mean, it's just a tube of steel,
Yeah.
with a certain number of seats on it and same number of crew. I mean, a particular brand or a particular model of aeroplane is they're all the same. They've just got different logos on the outside and different standard operating procedures and food and beverage. But I'm just wondering, how do you balance that, the functionality, the emotion, and the, if you like, the brand storytelling? So when Singapore Airlines has the Singapore Girl and Turkish Airlines or Qatar or whatever it is, how do you weave that brand DNA into the service culture of the airline? That to me has always been I mean, when we were at Icon, I think we did that quite successfully, you and your team and my people, because we weren't trying to be Western in the way we presented it. And the fact that we had this dilemma where I had a lot of young students who had to learn quickly, and they were often local staff who were not familiar with being in that kind of an environment, even working in a hotel, which is almost a surreal environment for them, engaging with people who are well educated or world travelers. So there's this sort of different element of understanding from the local indigenous people with their customers. So you've got to teach them those skills. So I was just wondering, if you're saying we're a teaching hotel and we're trying to be creative and we're passionate and we're grooming future leaders, that's the sort of brand DNA. So when you come to an airline, how do you translate that if everything else is pretty much the same? How do you translate the DNA?
The way that airlines are different is because of their brand experience, and so
Yeah.
you have to start there. You start with what is the brand experience of this airline that makes it different to all other airlines, and then you have the challenge of getting that into the mindset. First of all, the leadership group.
Mm,
Don't go straight to the guest front and start working on the guest experience staff, because if you don't get the mindset right in the leadership group, it'll never stick. It'll never last.
yeah.
So start with so you take the brand and you identify what are the drivers of the brand experience.
Okay.
So you might be a Middle Eastern brand, and of course, most Middle Eastern brands want to pick up on the generosity of hospitality. It's so famous in the Middle East, that generosity, and so they want to see that sense of generosity in the brand. That has to come through because we're Middle Eastern, but there are other things that have to come through in the brand experience that would be unique to that airline. So you might be considering confidence as one of your really important aspects of the brand. That
Mm,
we can be very confident in front of each guest and treat them in a very personal way, because
right.
I can be confident to work without a rule book that tells me
Mm,
when to breathe and when to use this
yeah.
sentence and that sentence, which is
Right.
one airline's favorite way of doing things. But we've gone away from that today, and we start to look at what is the brand experience and how can we make it personal and how can we make it meaningful and memorable. And once we understand that, we then create a mindset experience for the management and leaders, and then we go through the guest front step.
Okay.
But the cabin crew are the most important element, because the
Right.
cabin crew are the brand to the customer. They are. And if you don't invest in significant training with the people who are spending a lot of time with your customers, you will fail. I
Mm,
firmly believe this. All my life, I've said this and followed it through in real terms.
yeah.
If you do not invest in hospitality training, if you do not invest in brand experience training, you won't make it. You just won't make it.
Right.
And that's the struggle we have a lot of the time, because normally you work with a steering group, and on the steering group there could be the finance head, there could be marketing head, HR head, chief experience officer, etc. And some of those say, well, this is a lot of money. I don't think we should do that. And it's true. It is a lot of money. You are investing a lot in your product, in your guest experience. And there are a lot of struggles at the steering group level to justify because they know they're going to be held responsible for the outcome. So if we don't make the transformation, it doesn't come out to be as amazing as it should be. The steering group are going to take responsibility. So you invest a lot of time with the steering group, helping them understand the outcome, helping them understand why, and getting them into the brand journey as fast as you can.
That's very interesting. And I think then that if you're saying, okay, the outcome is going to be XYZ, right? Then obviously there's got to be a point at which you're guiding them on, say, how to even recruit the right people, right?
Yeah.
Because if they've got to have a certain benchmark, and those people that they're recruiting have to have a certain emotional capacity to engage with people. I mean, it's not only a physical appearance and intellectual ability. They've got to have certain characteristics that make them suitable, if you like, to carry out your. It's like somebody who's joining the SAS, right? I mean, they're moving from being a Royal Marine to being SAS, a special elite. So I know with some of these airlines, like Emirates, they're quite stringent, and I know Singapore Airlines because they used to do all the recruitment at Icon. They'd get 200 girls come in, and they might only pick 15 of them.
Yeah.
How does Yates and Partners get involved or guide the HR people of these airlines in terms of what you're looking for?
Once you're clear on your brand experience, you can answer the basic question, do we want people who are empathic, or do we want people who are energetically engaging? And you have to answer that question first. And that goes back to the type of hospitality that you want to deliver and the style. And so you might probably, if you were one of those names that you just mentioned, you might realize that if there's not the interpersonal energy,
yes,
not the engaging character, that particular person is not going to be successful in your culture, in your service.
Okay.
And it's not a good idea to recruit them because they'll fail training or they'll fail their first few months. So you spend a lot of time being clear about how hospitality works on board, and if your hospitality is high empathy, low intrusion, low engagement, fine. Then you know what sort of person you're looking for. And I'm thinking of this in the hotel sense that quite often when we're looking at butlers, each hotel brand, the top brands have a particular view of how the butler works. And should he be not seen but not seen, in and out, highly intuitive, or should he be greeting in the lobby, taking you to the room, engaging with you in a high energy sense and trying to help you work out what you want from the hotel journey. So it does start with getting a clear view of how the hospitality works in your hotel or in your
right.
And then going back. So we help a lot. We help a lot.
Because I think not all customers want necessarily to have a staff that they're engaging. Some people just want to be left alone. I mean, a lot of Asian customers don't want a lot of fuss and things like that, but they just want somebody who gives them face and recognition. One question, and
Richard, I just sorry to butt in there, but that's one of the most crucial elements of training.
Okay.
And it's something that is little understood, and it's something that we spend a lot of time on. When I come to you, you've sat down, I've shown you to your seat. I need to look at you and ask myself one question: how am I going to personalize this moment?
Right.
And if I'm in one of the top hospitality brands, I've got to be good at that. I've got to be
Right.
so good at it, I can just say, leave him alone. Or I've got to say, how about a champagne if I detect, or perhaps I could hang your jacket. But what I've got to do is be different with every single one of my guests because I don't want them all to hear me say the same thing. I
Yes.
need to stand, look at you, and ask myself, how do I personalize this moment? That is the
Right.
greatest skill of the crew that you will select. And you will select people who get to be good at that with training.
Right.
So
No,
it's
that's
not
a very
about
good point.
uniformity, it's about
Yeah.
looking and saying, how do I personalize this moment?
So it's largely what you're saying is it's about reading people. You've got to be able to read people, and
Understanding the
if it's a
moment.
family or it's a single person or it's an Arabic person or African, I mean, you've got to be able to read their cues, I suppose, to be able to then decide what you're going to do, right?
Absolutely. Understand the
Yeah.
moment. Understand the moment.
Yeah.
Understand. And you might ask one or two questions as you're walking towards the seat. How was the morning?
Yeah.
And if you get a certain type of response,
Right.
don't worry.
Yeah.
From here
Yeah.
on in, it's going to be wonderful. I'm sorry what
Very
happened at the
interesting.
airport.
Yeah.
And you start to go into
Right.
your plan.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, just to sort of wrap up, I just wanted to ask you not a contentious question, but a one that I've often wondered because not only not only in the hotel industry but also in the aviation world, yeah, the airline world, when you look at these ranks of award-winning properties or airlines, why is it that the vast majority of the times that these come out um, on an annual basis, the top 10 out of, say, 50 or 100 tend to be Asian? What is it about Asian service or design or style or
It's
brand storytelling, whatever it is? Why do these airlines always seem to be the ones in the top?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Ask yourself, why was Garuda from 2014 winning world's best cabin crew for 8 years consecutively? 8 years
Mm,
consecutively, right up to 2022. And of course, that was something that Singapore wanted as well. They wanted that number one position for cabin crew.
yeah.
And actually, the winners right now are Saudia, but the crew in Saudi are Indonesian and
Oh,
Filipino.
okay.
Um,
Interesting.
the world's best crew. There is something very special about the ability of an Asian person in a service context to be humble and to put the guests before themselves in every single way. And
Okay.
that, I think, comes from values in the family, raising. So I'm not saying that non-Asians can't do that. They can, but they quite often can't. They want to put themselves at the same level as the guest. You and I are the same here. Look, you've got no right to behave like that. But an Asian mindset is, you come before me, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a huge difference, and that
Yeah.
allows you to craft a service style around that. And it's not subservience. It's not.
No.
It's a value set that is there that my guests must always come first,
Mm,
and it
mm,
comes from the home. That's how it works in the home.
yeah. Very interesting.
Visits to our house.
It's something that I noticed coming back here to the UK. I mean, after having
Yeah,
lived and worked overseas for the last 40 years, since 1986 or whatever it was, that really doesn't exist here. I mean, it's non-existent unless you go into, if I'm in Brighton and I go into a Chinese restaurant, there's a place that I like to go to there, and they're all the whole family are from Hong Kong, and it's almost like you're transported
yeah,
immediately. Everything's different again. It's not because they look different; it's because the way they interact, the attention to making sure that you're happy and you're comfortable, and it's just completely different, and it just takes me back, and I miss that a lot.
Richard, I have to say, I love working with European hotel
Mm,
staff and European. And one famous project
yeah.
we did, not with your brand, but another brand, where the whole brand strategy we applied was simply European flair, and it
Mm,
was so much fun to work with European staff on how do we demonstrate European flair,
right.
and that worked. And you know that there was that pride, but you always knew that the team members saw themselves at the same level as the guest, and there was no room
Yes.
for that. But
Right.
giving European flair as the brand style actually created a lot of pride and
Mm,
a lot of energy, and we
yeah.
had wonderful ways of demonstrating European flair.
Yeah.
So you kind of look at different ways of attacking the same issue depending
Yeah.
on your target audience. Yeah.
Brilliant. So
Um,
what's the next big sort of hurdle or thing that you think we're going to have to overcome? Just a closing
I think
comment.
what I see in the hotel sector, particularly, we're in a struggle to get luxury sorted. And really, to my mind, what's happened is the big brands are building what they call as 5-star luxury environments, but really what they're doing is building accessible luxury. They're
Okay.
trying to get a sense of accessible luxury. They want a lot of visitors to feel this is their chance to enjoy luxury. And there is a huge difference between this accessible luxury and true luxury. And I think
Mm,
that's what's splitting the industry, the hotel sector, enormously. I can
brilliant.
see, I can see who's going towards pure luxury, if you like,
Yes.
and who's really moving into accessible luxury. And the
Right.
problem that we're getting into with the accessible luxury is that they've taken away all the GMs, they've taken away all the staff, and they're trying to deliver accessible luxury with as few people as possible. And
Yeah.
I'm puzzled by that, how you do that. But anyway, that's what's happening with a lot of brands. And I can see that the demand for accessible luxury is huge, huge.
Mm,
And
mhm.
you've got lots of people coming into travel for maybe the first time, international
Mm,
travel, and they're hunting for brands that can deliver a sense of luxury,
yeah.
accessible luxury.
Mm,
So the opportunity is very high, and I can understand why big brands are making that investment. I'm just
yeah.
puzzled with how they're going about it. Um, but
Brilliant.
um, and then we're seeing the differentiation of those that want to stay in the luxury segment, true luxury, um,
Right.
and that can only be personal. You can't have true luxury
Yeah.
without personal. Yeah, I think it's an
Absolutely. Yeah.
interesting um, era right now to see because you have so many new participants in travel who are
And
hungry
they're all
for the
trying to
experience.
a lot of them are trying to put a different spin on the same
Yes, that's right.
objective, if you like. Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, it's been really interesting. I mean, it would be lovely to be able to sort of come back to you in a couple of months' time and have a kind of recap, and just an update on what's happening. And I mean, one question I hadn't really thought about, but just out of curiosity, it seems that there's a lot of hotels opening in Bangkok and in at the moment, and a lot of new brands entering the market. There's a lot of independent hotels. What do you think's driving that? And do you think there's sort of it's going to have an impact on pricing and
Well,
rates?
I think it's about value of land, and
Yeah.
we are seeing uh, a lot of Hong Kong participation in development in
Mm,
Bangkok, particularly in the very center of Bangkok. A lot of money is coming in, and I think
mm.
there's a lot of um, strength in the view that the land values will appreciate significantly over
Okay.
time.
Right.
And what do you do with you? You've just bought the British Embassy, so you form a partnership with a Hong Kong or Singapore um, developer that's got lots of
Mm,
funds, and you're the tie end, and you sit down and you discuss together. What are you going to do with this huge piece of land. Well, it always pops up, we need a 5-star hotel. Because
Yeah.
what would my friends say if I didn't have a 5-star hotel? Where can I,
Right.
but then of course you need a complex of condominium and retail, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But there seems to be, on the owner's side, a lot of interest in putting more value on the land. And they believe that the more luxurious the brand they put on the land, that will help push up the value of the land. That's the way I see it.
Right.
I speak to a lot of Thai owners, and frankly, that's their only objective, is to increase the value of the land.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that looking at that new Dusit
Isn't it
complex,
beautiful?
with the Sky Garden, it's incredible. Yeah. I mean, I think Kun Chanin had such foresight there to
He is
do that.
extraordinary. And look at the way the architecture was formed on the outside. It's the walk this is Dusit Central Park.
Yeah.
The walk all the way up, and you come on plazas which are so beautifully designed, and there's such beautiful materials, the granites and the rocks. It's not the shining shishi. It's really understated. It's beautifully done, and the investment must have been huge. But it's just, I'm very proud of Bangkok. It's getting lots of really important architecture, I call it.
No, it really is, and I actually hope to get Kun Chanin on the podcast at some point.
He has such a vision.
Fantastic. But anyway, Keith, thank you so much. It's been really fascinating, and I really wish you and your team lots of success moving forward. And let's keep in touch. And it's been a really amazing and very interesting insight. Thank you so much,
Richard. Thank you so much for hosting, and it's been enjoyable too. And I look forward to coming back at your call.
Great.
Take care.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks a lot. Okay, I think it should be fine.
Great.
All right. So